Awaphuma ke.
Democracy is about accountability. How do you get elites in a society, both political and economic, accountable to the citizens of that society? And it seems to me that that's what fundamentally at its core democracy is about. Khutsong wanted something. In the vast majority, over 80-90%, and yet the leadership decided differently. Instead of engaging Khutsong, instead of opening up a discourse, it engaged Khutsong in a repressive strategy. The people of Khutsong wanted to effectively, wanted a policy agenda. They wanted to be incorporated in a particular province. They wanted to be incorporated in a particular way. Clearly, the leadership felt differently at the national level. So that's the first fundamental question. The accountability dynamic was clearly missing.
The ANC in Stellenbosch, they've decided that we should be incorporated into Northwest.
They were supposed to consult a community, okay, re nagana gore re ne isa Northwest ka reason ka mabaka a 1 2 3 4 5. So abatla ko batsong gore ba tlo ba kupa ba pueli bona ba bo bonise the reason.
Then and re khusetsa Northwest kan ba re foster no e bona nje ba se dang fila nga 1986 no.
There was no proper consultation with the community at large.
Clearly, the leadership in Khutsong felt disempowered. They felt that politicians were not listening to them. They felt that in Pretoria, those people were looking at graphs and in computer models and doing it without understanding people's concerns. It seems to me that those technocrats should have been in Khutsong. They should have been dealing fundamentally with the concerns of citizens and giving them guarantees in this regard.
You see, it's a question of administration. You know, you'll find that this is lagging behind. You'll understand that Gauteng is vibrant. I mean, that's where things are happening. Everything starts in Gauteng. I mean, you know, even the budget and what have you. Gauteng has always been at the top, in the forefront as it is, in terms of development, socially, academically, and politically, educationally. Gauteng, you know, the way they do things is very quick. Now, in Northwest, we are new in that province. We have to come to terms with how they run their things, you see, which is, in my opinion, it's a bit slow, you know. Probably they'll speed up as time goes on.
Gauteng, bona e reketsa this Gauteng online. Each and every school, MEC lights out the matter of master every school around Gauteng or even online. Social and Northwest, all such resources and what adio.
With a transformation of education, Northwest is behind 100%. They are still behind with the schedule, with many things.
Future ya bana ba rona is doomed. Because future without education, it's a doomed future. Then we also want our kids to be educated. If it's like this here in Khutsong,
Surely they are not happy with the whole idea of Northwest being incorporated. I mean, learners are part of community, you understand? Yeah. I mean, if the community is not happy, they are part of the community.
The health department of Northwest doesn't have, ambulances at all. Even now, they are leasing ambulances from a district, Western District Council.
Ke a last week ne ke ile go tleliniki ke re ke opelwa ke masapo ke tshwara ke tloga a ke yone mathata yanong ao ke a go sana dipidisi ke buile ke sa kry-a dipidisi ko tleliniki di seo dipidisi yaano ba tshwanetse ya northwest last year mono go bela metsi mo dipitse go sala dijo ba dikulane di ja magwenya ko sepetlele yaano ba tshwanetse reko ko hali phirim.
I think there's no question that services are lacking. Well, it seems to me that there's 3 or 4 things. First is the issue that everybody talks about, the capacity of the state. Are the people who are appointed trained? Do they have the skills? Do they have the training to be able to deliver on services? Do they want to deliver services? Sometimes when you go to a local place, a citizen, a poor person, they treat you like they're doing you a favor rather than it's their job to service you.
So Khutsong haina di tharotu haina nix. Yaanong ba reng ke ge ba le northwest ile gore e phua ka ntho tsotlhe.
Tsela ya serate saka ha ko le engwe tswako engwe ya eme tshontshe ya mele tsela engwe gore e tlhage ka kwale e kgone go kena mo tsela ha pula ena re kgama ke metsi a gona ntho ya right mo Khutsong next right ha eyo.
The problems of Khutsong were not Khutsong alone. The problem about accountability, the problem that poor communities felt that the people in Pretoria didn't look after them. That's a widespread feeling in the society.
I also go bona monna a baka suitcase using fela rena go batla mosebetsi go Northwest. I get everybody a baka suitcase ya re ha ngisa uzame kholi nami ngifuna umsebenzi. There's no one who automatically will go to Northwest. I don't know go batla mosebetsi go Northwest. Go kae?
At least go Joburg bana ba bona ba tsama ka 15 rand go selo go Joburg ha ba ba 15 30 rand ya go busa 50 rand wa ja mo yone o kreile mosebetsi kwa gona mosebetsi a ka se go batla go bona batho ba Khutsong go re under Northwest go sana mosebetsi a pallo ke Northwest
re nna ke apply tse liquor license Gauteng wa bo so lo ya ene ke nkile Carlton Sand so ke mo patetse motho o entse mosebetsi everything ke bone le lo yentse ke mo file di document ka ofela tsa di batlang ya bona body plan and so on and it's a plan at tavern ke chelete wa bo lo ya mo ne ke ka chelete ke mo patetse chelete e batla motho so a ka tsa mosebetsi re wela Northwest after that wa bo so ha re wela Northwest a re yena ka se gone ho tswela pele ka ntwe because of o tlamele ke mo fe chelete nngwe a lo qala hape o ya Northwest a itse ntwe.
If the community is saying we want to be in Gauteng because we think we'll get less services in Northwest, then how do you make sure that Northwest gives equal services to Gauteng? How do you give guarantees? How do you... That for me is an engaged process.
There was a number of engagements where people were trying to show government that they were unhappy with these decisions. Petitions were drawn, people signed, they were sent to the Minister of Provincial and Local Government. Various meetings were held with government officials.
I've got an additional copy from council resolution, which was taken by Merafong municipality, which says the resolution recommendation says that Merafong should remain in Gauteng with the stamp of the council. The ANC never listened to what the mass said. They ignored what the community said. The results of a public hearing. The public hearing, it was just an informality, hush thing. They knew the ANC that they've already decided.
Clearly there was some engagement. Then they said, well, we've had enough now. We made our decision. The community rebelled. They called them thugs. They sent in the police. They dealt with the police. It began to spiral out of control.
Poor people gonna rise up, get their share.
Residents went on the rampage, protesting against the lack of service delivery and unemployment.
Don't you know you better run, 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 run.
Well, it's quite regrettable that facilities like a library were burnt down, you know, because these are facilities where people need to use them. However, people decided to vent their anger on anything that was related to government, you know, as a sign of protest. It's unfortunate. However, violent conditions will create violent responses to situations, you know.
People lash out, as I understand it, against a government symbol. You burn something that belongs to the government. It always turns out in a local place, either the library or the clinic. You can't get to the offices of the officials because there they got too many barricades, too many police services, they block that up. But the vulnerable one is the library or the clinic, and people burn it. Now, is it right? Of course it's not. It's silly. The question we have to ask is, why do people feel it's necessary to burn the library or clinic before somebody listens to them? Why does it have to be when you burn the clinic that a politician comes to you? It seems to me that there's a logic that has emerged in the popular psyche, that the politician only comes when you do something violent. And that's not a good message. What have the politicians done that makes people think like that? That, for me, is the problem. Whether you look at Khutsong or whether you look at the recent protests in Standerton, the big question is, why did you have people respond in a violent way? Because if you engage, if you talk, and nobody is responsive, and you feel you're not being heard, then you become violent. And suddenly Jacob Zuma is there, and Julius Malema is there, and they're firing the mayor. Then what lesson does the community learn? They learn, hey, when you do violence, people respond. When you don't do violence, when you engage, nobody listens. What is it about our system, about the political system, that makes violence work and engagement not? And what's the context for that? And what is deficient in our system? Because that's not a deficiency simply of the political system. It's a deficiency of accountability, because people are not being accountable to the citizens.
Decide to go stadium and back no Khutsong kaofela go ya go vote. Ene reske a gona motho ena le etsa mo ka di one ka tsatsile no go tshamekiwa ball. Go sa lwaniwe, each and everybody tletsele stilo sa gaga itule se fale go nwa bujwala. Ene go sa lwaniwe. Ke sure batho bana ba ile for ne ba le 24 already. Ka gona ba kena ba iphitlhile.
We have taken a decision as the community members, even the ANC members, staunch members like myself. We didn't vote because we have taken a decision as the community.
We cannot be putting people in parliament, the very same people that then violate our rights and disregard our views. Would rather withhold that vote and not vote in the next elections unless this matter has been sorted out by then.
They stayed out of the system. They refused to vote. So what you had a boycott of something like 94% of people didn't turn up to vote for that election. And so the question is, if you feel forced to come out of the system, not to vote at all, when you're unhappy with the political elite and not to vote for somebody else, well, that's a failure of democracy. Khutsong was a failure of democracy at multiple levels. One, the reflection of the accountability, the wishes of the citizens were not captured. Two, the way you dealt with the citizens was in a repressive way rather. And three, when the citizens decided to show their objection, they didn't vote for another party as in a democracy. They didn't vote at all. They stayed away from the system. And it seems to me that that's the real failure of a democracy.
While they're standing in the welfare lines, crying at the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know, talking about a revolution. It sounds poor people gonna rise up and get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's
I just saw the budget by Praveen Gordon. One level, that was a pragmatic budget. But on another level, that budget was very business friendly. Now I can understand you're concerned about the global economy, foreign investors, but you must also be concerned about citizens. Because frankly, if citizens protest in the way like they protested in Khutsong, actually, the foreign investors are not going to come anyway. Our school children have the lowest maths and science results in the whole of Africa. Now, we're the richest country in Africa, but we have the worst results in Africa. Forget America, forget Asia, we have the worst results in Africa. So somebody has asked, how? What's going on here? Where's this going wrong here? What's going on? when we did a test and they gave teachers standard 5 exam and half of them failed. Well, how are you going to teach somebody if you failed the exam? Everybody's talking about racial quotas. We need so many black players. And they're talking about other. Well, if you build rugby grounds and soccer grounds and cricket grounds in the townships, the people will play. Then you don't have to have quotas, because as people play, they will learn, and then the games will happen, and then automatically the majority, the teams will become demographically representative. Why? Because everybody has access to the facilities. But when the only people who have access to cricket facilities are white schools in the northern suburbs, then you have to worry about quotas. Because then you have to take the one black kid that is doing well and pull them and put them in the white school.